This is a go home video for Scout. This will be the first video in a series of a few that I'm going to do. This one outlines her training, a little bit of pressure and release, how to get things to happen. It covers the commands that Scout should know. It covers some basic herding terms that you might need to understand. And just kind of demonstrates some of the basics, what I expect out of a dog. And then the following videos will be how to progress with the dog. To start off with, pressure and release is used to train herding dogs. So if I step into Scout, I expect her to give to my pressure and basically move in the opposite direction. I also train all of my dogs to defer to a verbal correction, so an a hey, what are you doing, a no. When they hear any of those terms, I expect them to stop, pay attention to me, and look to be redirected. So first, upon coming into the pen, I call her in. I expect her to stay with me. I shouldn't have to say anything to the dog, but I will tell them with me. So there, first time she gets up and she's going to go look for work. So verbal correction, when she stops, then I can call her back to me or tell her with me. And then I'm just going to go around and piddle and expect her to stay with me. So if the dog is correct, I'm going to let them continue to do what they're doing. And if they're incorrect, I'm going to start with a verbal correction. They should stop and pay attention to me upon hearing the verbal correction, and then I can redirect them. If they don't stop and look to me, then that's when I'm going to start to apply physical pressure. So physical pressure in this situation would be walking towards her, blocking her from going towards the sheep. And then I expect her again to stop and stand still, and that's when I will release the pressure, and then I will redirect her. So I'm just going to take her into a very small pen here with sheep in it. Just demonstrate that I don't expect the dog to work until they're asked to. So I call her into the pen. I don't tell her to down. She chose to down. But I do expect her to stay by me. So if she had walked into the pen and gone straight to those sheep, she would have gotten a verbal correction, and I would have tried to step in front of the sheep to prevent her from going to work. So I'm just going to walk her around here. You can see she's eyeing up a little bit. So she's trying to go to work. Even though she's paying attention to me, she's really watching those sheep, and that's what's drawing them on her like that. So to give her a little verbal correction, tell her with me, change directions. Right there, she decides to go to work. So I'm going to step between her and the sheep. So I do step in, I kind of grab her muzzle, give her a little bit of a shake, a correction, basically tell her, get your mind out of that, you need to be thinking about staying with me. So you can see how much more calm the sheep are here when she's not trying to work them. When she's staying with me, they're able to just kind of move out of the way and go about their business. I call her out of the pen. I don't like the dog to go ahead of me, so when I open the pen, I don't want them to rush through. So I call her with me. I'm just going to walk her around in here for a little bit. So see, there's sheep loose in here, and she just needs to stay with me and ignore them. Down means down. I expect the dog to stay in a down until I tell them to do something different. Even if we're working stock, if the stock moved, the dog should not get up. So there, that's that correction for getting up. Correct, correct, correct. Hey, hey, what are you doing? And I'll walk into her. Then when she goes back into her down, I can release the pressure, move away from her. So a lot of people want to stand to the side to send their brand new dog. This is probably not going to work for somebody with a started dog. So if I stand in this direction, that's come by, the other side was away, but I'm not in a position to be able to protect my livestock if she decides she doesn't want to do something right. Here I'm in a position to block her from going to the livestock. I did call her into me to get her a little closer so the camera could see her. So if I'm standing directly in front of her and I put pressure on her, see, she should move away from me. You should be able to get that result with your dog. Now I tell her away, and I block her from the way I don't want her to go, and I just open up the door to let her go the way she's supposed to go. So see, if I'm standing on this side of her, I am blocking her from going, come by. So if I want to send her come by, I need to step to the other side. She still needs to maintain her down. Now I'm blocking that direction to where she can't go away. So then I'm going to tell her come by. And that's lovely. There, down. There means turn into the stalk and control. It sets a line. And then down, of course, means down. So she's getting into a little bit of trouble here because she's anticipating she wants to go to work. So I'm going to step in, I'm going to take the sheep away from her, push her out. So once she's tested me a time or two, then I can no longer just give her a verbal correction. I need to take the sheep away. So if I want to send her on the away side, which is counterclockwise, I'm going to step to the other side of her. So what I'm going to do here, because she turned into the sheep a little bit early, is I step in and I block her. Send her around. I'm going to send her away. Just because she gets behind livestock doesn't mean that's her cue to turn in. I step into her because she's not utilizing the full pin. She's got plenty of speed on her. This is a small pin. She needs to utilize the whole thing. So step into her shoulder if you need to push her out. There, down. Turn into the livestock and down. So she's anticipating again. So here I'm going to make a little bit firmer correction. She's already blown me off on the down a few times. She kind of knows what's coming. So I'm going to just take her collar, pick her up, take her to where I told her down. Make it happen. I'm in a position to send her come by. If she hears my command and she doesn't make a move, I'm just going to step into her and apply direct pressure. So there, see, I'm stepping into her because she needs to utilize that entire pin. She doesn't need to cut corners. The further off of your livestock she can work, the better. The more calm your livestock will be. This is why I don't send a brand new dog from my side. You can see she tried to cut straight into that no line, the red line. So I'm going to reset her. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use my stick. I'm going to kind of put it in her eye view, and then I'm going to resend her. That's on the away direction. There, down. She's on balance. This is called balance. When your stock are at you, but they're not going past you, then the dog is on balance. So I ask her to walk up to push him past me. And you can see she hesitates a little bit. And the reason why is because she's got a really nice sense of balance and she likes to fetch. So she wants to bring your livestock to you. And she doesn't necessarily want to push them past you. So I'm going to send her again and just demonstrate balance. I think I'm going to send her on the away first. So she goes away. When the sheep are looking at me, there, right there, that's balance. So she needs to maintain that line. Once I've told her there, you see how they're not looking at me anymore, so now she needs to go away, there. So they're on balance. And see, she can readjust herself. There is not mean walk a straight line. It means to maintain the path of the livestock. Send her on the come by direction this time.
Down.
And she's going to overflank on this one, and you'll see what I mean when it happens. When the sheep are looking at me, there. So right there, that's where she needed to turn in. She continued on a few steps, and you see what happens is she pushes the sheep away from me. So then I have to send her on and away to fix that. So you can get really nitpicky about this, especially when you're working rope stock. And you want to do that because you want your dog to see the perfect picture, and that way whenever things are going to heck, then she knows what the perfect picture should look like, and she'll let you step in and help her. So I'm going to tell her there early this time because she overflanked. And you see the sheep are looking at me now. So then I just need to maybe send her just come by just a little bit, right there, walk up. And see, she can cover that. She can move to get the sheep facing me again. There gives her a lot of freedom. Sending her all the way around when they're looking at me. There. See, it's not always exactly 12 and 6. Sometimes she needs to bypass that point on the clock to get the sheep looking at me. And now I think I'm going to take a walk. So you can see I've set my line, and the sheep are aiming at me. She needs to maintain that, and that means her pace needs to change depending on what the sheep need. Her direction needs to change depending on what the sheep need. But I don't have to tell her come by and away. I just say there, walk. Once the sheep are headed on the line that I'm happy with, the dog should maintain that line. So if I stop, it might change direction. She needs to adjust. If she doesn't adjust, that's when you can see me turn and face her or instruct her to do something different. So if you're not seeing the dog adjust, then you might have to say come by or away. You might have to stop the dog if they're pushing too hard. I'm going to turn and I'm going to go the other direction. You see how I want her to be pushed off of the sheep there. She was pushing just a little bit too hard. So then I encourage her to walk up again. And if she doesn't get up immediately, I put pressure on my stock. I don't put pressure on the dog. So just draw her attention back to the stock if she's not going to walk up on them. There, because they're facing me. Then she just needs to maintain that line. And you can see how she's not in a perfect 12 or 6 position on these livestock. She's out off to the side, controlling their heads, not letting them pass me. She's got to get behind them sometimes to push, but then she can come out to the side and control their speed and their direction. So if they're walking, she doesn't need to be doing anything. But if they stall out, that's when she might need to pick up and walk a little bit. The there command is very confusing to a lot of people. On a brand new dog and on Scout, I would like to see her completely come to a stop when you say there, and then you can give her the command to walk up. When you send your dog on a come by or away, they should not turn into stalk until you say there. A lot of dogs want to turn in on balance, and most of the time that is correct, but here I'm having her drive these sheep to the corner. So she cannot balance them to me if she's driving them to a different point on the landscape. So I'm having her drive them to the corner. And I have to walk with her a little bit because she doesn't necessarily want to be out in front of me. See, she's going to try to bring the stock back to me because that's what her default is. Change corners, try to get him to take her to the other corner. So the drive is the same as a fetch. The difference is that the target is going to be to probably an inanimate object, a gate, a corner, a panel. But you're still setting a line and expecting the dog to maintain that. The only difference, again, like I said, it's going to be to an object usually, and the dog's often going to default to wanting to bring those stock to you. So you'll have to stop her a little bit short, maybe redirect her, send her around. You see how she doesn't want to come in between me and the stock? That's just because she wants to fetch. She doesn't necessarily want to drive. So just call her in. Walk up. We're just trying to bring them to this other corner up here at the top. And right there she's maintaining a line well because you see how she's parallel to them, holding them. So that no, that hey, that comes in handy, because if she stops every time I say that, I can prevent some kind of accident from happening. And it's just going to basically be that she's going to bring them to you versus putting them through a gate. But at the same time, if you're talking cattle and you're holding a gate and she's piling these cattle on you, that can turn into a dangerous situation. So, be ready to stop your dog and just redirect them. You need to watch your livestock. That's probably the number one thing people are not doing, is they're not watching their livestock. They're watching the dog. If the livestock are headed in the right direction, they have the right attitude, then the dog is probably correct. And here I just encourage her to push him up, push him up, push him up. So you can see she's a real flanky dog and she wants to keep the whole thing together. So push, 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 just to show you she's got a little push command to her. And then also to kind of show you that we can get things out of control. Push, 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 and then they're down. So once I've had enough of that, I tell her they're down and she should turn it off. So going from that high adrenaline state back to a working mind is very important, and you can get control of her no matter the situation by putting yourself between her and the livestock. So I just call her off. I'm going to restart her just because I don't want the end of this session to have been just all adrenaline, just get in and grab something. I very rarely let her do that. On cattle, she will be allowed to grip a little bit more if it's needed. On sheep, it's very rarely needed. So just send her around and around. This is come by direction. So clockwise around the livestock. Again, she does not need to turn in until I tell her to. You can see her slow up a little bit when she thinks she gets to balance. I'm going to change directions, send her on the away, counterclockwise, away. So she needs to utilize that whole pin as much as she can. And you can see her trying to turn in there on balance. And I just redirect her, just tell her away. So her shoulders is nice and off. These stock are nice and calm. If she was in way too close, they would definitely be running and she'd never be able to get to balance. So change directions, and you can see when I give her that correction there, she stopped and was like, what did you want? And then I was able to read